Hello everyone, hope you're doing great. I'm really excited to have with me Aris. Aris is the founder of RankBee. He's someone I really admire. He's a second-time founder. He has an amazing experience working with really big companies, for example, Amazon and many others. But if you mind, Aris, I'm really excited to have you, and I would like to have a short intro about you for the people who may don't know you.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Zaharias. Hey, everyone. This is Aris. I'm the CEO of RankBee.ai, a company that specializes in AI visibility for SaaS, e-commerce, and political campaigns or any type of brand and product. And I'm the ex-head of global SEO for Amazon, and I've been a builder and a tech and marketing person for the past 25 years.
That's great. And since you mentioned RankBee, I really want to dive into it and ask you why RankBee, and more specifically, why now? I mean, we've seen a lot of changes happening in the industry, so you have definitely insights, and yeah, I'm interested in hearing the why behind, let's say, RankBee.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of movement in the industry, right? The consumers are definitely changing the way they discover products. They're switched away from, the digital media is being fragmented once again, and the decision on what to buy, which brands to trust, which brands to discover and explore, begin now on AI. In and across many fields, right? We see in products about 60% of products are researched in AI before any Google or other search is being done. In politics, we find that amongst undecided voters, 1 in 3 consult AI what to vote. In SaaS products, which is such a fragmented field, everybody's looking, at SaaS. Is there something new that I've missed? That they're going to AI. They don't trust Google anymore for that type of information. For for me, the my experience is large scale enterprise optimization, Amazon, Orbitz, Change.org. So for me, the why is great. So visibility is one step that every company has to make. But my major interest is how do you mass scale campaigns for AI? What does that look like? And that's what RankBee focuses on.
And when we say analytics and optimization tool for generative AI era, what is the problem that you're actually, let's say, solving?
From the analytics perspective, any brand, any product owner, any political campaign, they have to figure out what does AI say about them, right? So um, when customers research um, their products, they they don't know what they're looking for and how to look for it. So they start with very vague questions, right? So they might say something like, uh, what's a good motorbike? What's a good dishwasher? You know, and AI often comes back and says, well, what size are you looking for? What's important to you? Do you care about energy certifications? Do you care about how fast does it work? All sorts of things like that. Now, with a regular SEO campaigns, which is where a lot of the users of such tools come from, you kind of work with keywords. You don't work with attributes. You don't know what AI talks about. And our thesis is that if you want to be great at optimizing for AI, you need to pivot into thinking how the AI thinks. So you need to take that sort of those types of questions that customers ask, understand how AI talks about products and how it recommends products, and so your analytics and your understanding pivot towards, okay, great. The customer is looking for, let's say, a car, right? The AI thinks of a car as something that has a big trunk, something that has great economy, something that has safety for all its passengers, right? Crash tests or other data, something that might be exciting to drive or fast or just comfortable in the city. And so this is where I think the thinking changes from SEO to AI, is that you need to understand as a campaigner and as a marketing person how to reposition your analytics to understand how AI thinks.
That's a great answer. Thank you, Aris. And regarding, I'm interested in hearing your definition when it comes to AI search visibility and actually the metrics, or I don't know, the KPIs that we are actually tracking inside RankBee. It could be, I don't know, citations, share of voice, sentiment, or anything else. And since you are actually a tech founder, I'm interested in hearing about what, let's say, other tools get wrong when it comes to AI search visibility or anything related to that, let's say, aspect.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think I might have something to share around this.
Yeah, feel free.
Let me have a look. Okay. There we go. Sorry about this. So,
That's great.
when you think about analytics, there are, the first thing to think about is obviously coverage, right? But if you're trying to optimize something, if your edge sort of like way of optimizing your website, what are you going to do in the end, right? You have to change your content, you have to do your technical optimization, and you have to understand, where do you need to rank better, and then go ahead and optimize those surface areas with content optimization, etc. Now, most other AI tools, they think about, do I rank or not? And is AI or other sources talking about my product in a good or bad way? What they're not thinking about is, when AI thinks about a product, are they making the answer based on my content or not? This is called the weighted word count, right? So if I have a political campaign or a brand, if I'm Apple, I don't care if I'm ranking or not. Of course I'm going to rank for my products. What I want to know is, if somebody's researching the camera of the iPhone, when AI ChatGPT is asked which phone has the best camera, are they using my content to answer that question, or are they using forum content to answer that question? So if you haven't optimized your content, and AI uses a large fragmented field of sources, they're not using your content. But if you optimize your content in a way that packages all the answers the way AI likes them, they use your content, so the answers actually reflect your opinions. And same with citations, share, and coverage. Effectively, we've invented a suite of metrics that dig under the boot of AI, ChatGPT or Gemini or Grok, and they kind of go into it to help you understand how each article, each piece of content you create influences the answers, causes the AI to increase or decrease citations, and in fact influence the logic of their answer. And I think that's what's missing from the industry, is the drive to optimize, right? And because it's a lot easier to focus on analytics and sort of get an idea and use SEO tools for the rest of your campaign. But unfortunately, SEO tools are becoming slightly obsolete in terms of influencing AI, because they're not made to do this kind of work.
That's really interesting. And from, let's say, the mentions that competitors may are ranking when it comes to a specific, I don't know, product feature or a company, do you also have, let's say, capability to review the mentions and what's ranking, let's say? Or do you analyze it in order, let's say, to prepare this kind of content optimization to make, let's say, your content being the cited version?
Yeah. So, okay. So I'm going to try and enlarge this and share. Can you still see my
Yeah, that's
my
great.
The way this works technically, and this is kind of the most interesting technical thing we do, pioneer as a company, is when you're writing something to influence AI, you don't know what AI likes, because you don't know what logic it's used to arrive at at an answer. So what we do as a simulation is first we understand what are the attributes. We talked about this, right? Like if you're looking for a car, are we talking about a big car, a small car, an economic car? We find what's important. We craft this automated term. So you don't know about this, right? As a customer, you're just like, I just want to optimize this content. But we find what are the relevant sort of vectors, what are the attributes, what are the prompts. And then we see what ranks, where does AI get this information from? What are all the AI sources for those attributes? And then we create hundreds of variations of the content. So we're saying, okay, great, let's go find out if I create variants of content that focus on the size of the car, does that help you rank better? Does it help your car being recommended? If I change if I produce other pieces of content that, let's say, take the economy of the car plus the fact that it's comfortable and it has boot space for pram in the back, does that make it more recommended as a family car? And we simulate this. You don't have to publish it on your website yet. We take all those hundreds of variations, we do a simulation, and then we find which is the single piece of content that will get you the highest rankings for what you're looking for, right? Let's say for a family car, and then you publish it. And so that's the sort of the way to research is automatic, right? We do hundreds of source analysis, variations, and then arrive with the recommended product.
Okay, that's interesting. And now I have also one question that came on top of my mind, which is that at this point, let's say there isn't a specific platform or a dashboard or let's say an AI search console from, I don't know, OpenAI or Google or any other platform, at least at this point. But do you think that if a platform like that, a native platform, comes up, does that, let's say, expand your category, or do you think that it will make it more saturated or fragmented? I don't know. And where do you see, let's say, RankBee in that kind of world? I mean, it's still early. We don't have any layered assumptions about that, but I imagine that since Google already has Google Search Console, I imagine something similar would be about AI search.
I think the utilities that Google and Bing have launched over time have really helped both agencies and in-house teams thrive, right? And my view is that with more data, more teams have a scientific way of optimizing their campaigns, and they're less afraid of taking action. So I feel in the AIO space, one of the factors that is going to accelerate through this is the adoption from more types of teams. Like currently, the main teams that adopt AI optimization is teams who rely on their agencies to do so. Building up internal teams is slow because there's no expertise, and I feel that as Bing and ChatGPT and OpenAI and Claude and other teams step up with offering tools for teams to learn how to do this, more people will be interested in legitimize the industry from within, and more customers will be looking for tools, but also for learning and becoming experts in the field.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I see that there is also a big space, and what I mean by that, I remember that 3 years ago, AI and LLMs actually one of the things that killed, let's say, the perception regarding SEO because of all these changes, the zero-click, let's say, slogans and other approaches that consultants shared and so on. But as we see now, this is also one of the drivers that are driving back, let's say, demand when it comes to SEO services, because even though AEO and AI search could be different, and the way that you can approach it, even with tools, is not the same, but pretty much the fundamentals, and there is a correlation actually when it comes to traditional SEO and AEO. And yeah, so I can only imagine that there is huge untapped opportunities in that, let's say, category. But I'm interested in hearing, let's say, your thoughts regarding that perception, and what do you think about that? If that's accurate, if you are not thinking about it in that way, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, when you think of the researchers and experts, in the space, they will all tell you that AI is completely different and that there's so much more to do. And if I've been in conferences where I'm silently sitting, in the crowd, and I hear people commenting on AI, and they're like, "Oh man, well, it's no, I've heard enough about this subject. It's all the same. There's no difference to SEO. I don't even want to hear about another presentation and another, and I think the spectrum is there. I think there's definitely fatigue amongst teams, and they don't want to think about another channel, and they don't understand why it's different, and it's yet another thing to become experts. But I'll give you a great example of where this makes a huge difference, right? And you can pick one from any industry, from politics. You can pick one from from SaaS products. Recently I was analyzing this banks, for instance, right? Like actually the bank example was great. So AI, we're working with a bank to analyze effectively how their opportunities, and we figured out that AI thinks that their bank didn't have ATMs. That if you wanted to withdraw cash from the bank, you had to pay a fee. And this is not an SEO game. That's you can't do anything about that with SEO, right? SEO didn't have that problem. This is a new problem created by AIs for us. And the answer was we had to find out where's the sources, where does AI learn that there's no ATMs, and why is it not recommending this bank for a consumer bank, and then seed the right content in order to change that. And then AI was like, oh, okay, maybe you have ATMs, so I can now recommend you for a consumer bank. This is a completely different flow from what you would do as an SEO person, right? It goes slightly into branding and digital PR, but it is SEO. It's literally finding the weakness in your attribute logic and then publishing content that changes the narrative.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, from a specific standpoint, it has to do regarding the sources that influence, let's say, that citations, and in most cases, yeah, it's not influenced by traditional, let's say, blog post or queries that have volumes. So yeah, I totally get your point there. But other than that, I mean, it's a new trend that, let's say, most SEO teams or companies, at least bigger companies, trying to treat, let's say, AI search as a new distribution channel. But I don't know, but I'm interested in hearing your thoughts regarding, let's say, misconceptions that you see, especially, let's say, from teams that are getting still things wrong regarding, let's say, AI search, or any examples that you have on mind.
I mean, the main misconception is that they're not different, because that stops you from thinking about all these other problems, right? When somebody's, for instance, if you're a big e-commerce vendor and you're selling big appliances, your SEO campaigns might have been so far about discovery. So you were thinking about, am I ranking high when somebody's looking for a dishwasher?
Mm-hmm.
In the AI world, though, we know from my Amazon experience, when somebody's looking for a dishwasher to order it online, they want to know that you can install it, right? They're not going to look for that on Google 10 years ago because they knew that there's no answer. Now they will, though. Now in their research, they'll be like, okay, well, I want one delivered. I found the dishwasher that I want. Who is the best e-commerce store to buy it from that is going to install it for me? Now you've lost the sale. Like if you're not in the AI space and you're not like interested in all the attributes that AI uses to recommend a product or a business to buy a product from, you have a blind spot. So of course, if you haven't done your research and you're not aware of those terms and how people search differently, you're sitting very comfortably on your SEO campaign and you're thinking everything is fine, right? But there's somebody else on another store who's just won a sale and they're not optimizing for the product, they're not optimizing for white goods, they're optimizing if AI thinks that their delivery and installation methods are great. And suddenly they might see a lift in their entire product line, all their white goods from all those expensive lines of products, including TVs and all sorts of other things, because they've solved that problem for AI and the customer. So yeah, I'd say anybody who thinks there's absolutely nothing new to do, they don't know what they don't know, right? They don't know what's out there, and this, I guess, that's why we're here, right? This is the kind of thing that AI completely turns the head on product discovery. Is that you really need to think of the whole research experience, not your narrow SEO discovery for a specific product, but are you the right company to buy this product from? And if somebody asks AI, should I buy it from, you know, Amazon or Walmart or Argos? Um, what is the criteria the AI uses, and are you recommended for that purchase?
Yeah, that's a really good answer. And I have 2 points actually, because this month we have many intro calls and we heard a lot, two major, let's say, issues. The first one that we found out is that many companies are still blocking AI bots. They don't have, let's say, robots.txt or LLMs.txt files. I don't know if you think, because there is a big discussion regarding LLMs files and how, let's say, it affects discovery in AI search, but still, it seems like that many established brands still doesn't have any. And other than that, we also heard a lot about companies, let's say, trying to identify how, let's say, this AI search as a channel will impact their funnel. We are not a huge believers of the funnel, basically, but if you can say that the material existing at this point in AI search and the prompts, let's say, the users are actually using, do you see it somewhere on this, let's say, funnel or in any stage from awareness, consideration, decision, or somewhere?
Yeah, you know, there's many different ways of skinning that cat. I think I'll say two things. The first thing is I'd like to do a little bit of a metaphor for how prompts are understood by AI, because I think this is a difficult area. Like, folks are not necessarily have a great idea for how AI thinks about those things. The first thing is, words in AI mean a lot less than in SEO, right? So if for AI, the word, the Eiffel Tower, and the phrase, that pointy building in the middle of Paris, and the phrase, the most popular tourist attraction in France, mean the exact same thing, right? All of those three phrases point to the exact same neural network, 3D, multi-dimensional point. When you're thinking about the funnel, when the word funnel is describes how customers search and how keywords evolve. It doesn't describe how AIs think about this, though, right? So I think, obviously, within marketing teams, you want to think about discovery, and you want to think about conversion, and you want to think about product specification, research, and all that stuff. But you need to always think of, when AI understands a product, what does AI think is important for the stage you're at? And this is a dimension that most techniques miss today. So when people talk about fan out queries, etc., this is the SEO way of doing the exact same thing. But in, let's see if I have a visual here. In the AI space, that looks a bit different. So, for instance, if you're buying a 4K TV, the AI is thinking about sound quality, size, brand reputation. This is mid-funnel. It's not discovery, right? Before they arrived at 4K TV, somebody asked the AI, what TV should I buy? Now, that's a different campaign, right? If you're Samsung and you've invested on 8K TVs, what you want to be doing is you want to be convincing AI to recommend to customers not to buy 4K TVs, but buy 8K TVs, because that's going to lead to Samsung TVs, which is the only company that has 8K TVs right now, right? And so the upper funnel discovery for AI is very different now. It's not about keyword fanning. It's about convincing AI to recommend the type of product that you're best at, right? So, yeah, that's an example for how the paradigm shifts with AI.
That's a great example. And regarding the technical issues, I mean, do you think that they still affect websites and how they are perceived from, I don't know, LLMs, like all this discussion regarding LLMs TXT robots TXT files, and so on?
Yeah, we've engaged with a lot of customers, and what we found is that there are companies out there, big and small, especially bigger actually, that most companies have these types of problems that prohibit AI from accessing their products and information unwittingly. There are some few teams that have strategically decided to abstain from AI or to withhold their content for training and only give it for live queries and choices like this, which we may not want to get into right now. But there are, I want to say, 1 out of 10 companies we've talked to had some sort of issue that they were not aware of. Many of them are typically technical, like, hey, I've got JavaScript or AI can't see that. But some of them are, for instance, at the cloud level, because they hopped on, they're using a cloud distribution service or a CDN that blocks AI, right? And they don't even know about that, right? It happened without them knowing. So I think definitely part of what we do is an audit where we test those things and we see if they're discoverable, irrespective of whether or not their LLM setup is correct, right? The proof is in the pudding. You can either crawl it or you can't.
Makes sense. And on another topic, when it comes to, let's say, if you had to pick one North Star metric for AI visibility, what would it be? And you can also add, I don't know, 2 to 3 supporting metrics that you would pair with it in order, let's say, to be more detailed.
If you're an e-commerce company, coverage is definitely key. You want to be there for prompts. If you're running e-gaming or a SaaS company, a product that you have only 50 competitors and people are researching you, then you want to have a couple of more metrics. You want visibility, but also you want sentiment. You want to know if you're actually being recommended or you've been unfavorably talked about. And then thirdly, if you own a product, or if you're a political organization or a mega brand, what you want to be measuring is whether you're influencing the conversation about the topics you care about. Like what percent of the answers out there are sourced by your thinking. And this is the most advanced level of type of analysis. If you're Apple, you want to know when ask about Google versus Apple products, do they take your point of view or do they take your reviewer's point of view from forums? If you're a political party, you want to know if your agenda and your past is represented based on favorable or unfavorable sources. So yeah, depends who you are. Sorry, you were hoping for a binary question, but I didn't have one.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it depends is the casual answer in that type of questions, but yeah, it definitely makes sense. I mean, it has to do with the company, the category, their stage, I don't know, the industry and so on. So it makes sense. Now I have a question for you, because this is something that I'm really thinking about, and this is about, let's say, the results that most tools are getting through, let's say, when it comes to AI visibility. Because as I perceive how it works, let's say, it is like running the kind of prompts based on the topics that are related to a client, and through, let's say, running a set of prompts, you are identifying, let's say, a few of these metrics. If I'm simplifying things for sure, but I mean that's the top lay. That's the overall idea. But other than that, I mean, I've read many things regarding how this API, let's say, calls from platforms like API and others in order, let's say, to run these prompts aren't always, let's say, accurate, and not always, let's say, the exact results that users see when they are logged in, logged out, they are using a pro account, and so on. Does it make sense? I mean, is it something that is it a real issue or not?
Yeah, it is an issue. You definitely want uh, the most representative benchmark you can get for your customers. But the issue is where you're getting your data from, firstly, and not so much about whether you're using the exact same prompts that your customer is using. So there's definitely a lot of companies out there who are trying to convince you they know what people are looking for in AI, and therefore you should buy that data, and you should look at the queries that your customers are doing on AI. I think that might be useful in some cases. I don't think it's useful for most cases, because when you think about, again, if you're thinking about a car, you can, if you've watched Top Gear long enough, you know that there's 20, 30 criteria for how to evaluate a car, right? It's not going to change tomorrow. It's not going to, there's not going to be a new set of criteria where we now think that uh, a, you know a flying car or having more wheels is an issue, right? And what happens with AI is, because you know what are the set of criteria that customers are asking for, if you know your product, you don't need to know what they're exactly asking. What you need to do is you need to make sure that for all the 40 attributes that are important for a car, that you're covering the permutations of questions that are making sure you're being recommended for those attributes, and that your car is favorably reviewed. And so if you get distracted and you start tracking all those different ways that customers are looking for, you're not going to get different answers, because again, AI interprets answers based on concepts, not on words you're using. It's the Eiffel Tower example, right? It doesn't matter how you describe it. In the end of the day, you know, the customer wants to understand the product across those fixed number of attributes. There might be edge cases, but as a campaigner, you should think about benchmarking in that way for AI, not in terms of prompts, but in terms of concepts and attributes. Now, in terms of sources, you definitely want to use scrape data. The API is no longer a particularly valid source of data. It was in the beginning, but now that they've got so many layers of features that are customer facing, these have not made it to AI, and so the results are radically different now. You definitely want to use scrape data for this type of analysis.
I really like your answer and the metaphors and the examples that you used. And yeah, I totally agree with you, because to be honest, we have tried many different tools, especially in the beginning, let's say, of this exercise with all these new AI visibility trackers, let's say, in order to communicate results to our clients. And to be honest, what I didn't personally liked much was that mostly the information that we get from these prompts are actually only commercial prompts, right? But to be honest, I think like in most cases, users are using, let's say, LLMs to also try to find informational queries, job to be done, and many other things. So I definitely agree with you in that retrospective. I mean, it's not only commercial things and listings and so on. There are many other things that users are trying to find related to a product or a company or whatever.
Yeah. There's one user journey that I always think about when people talk about keywords, right? This is a real example, right? Somebody is looking for a remedy because they have snails in their gardens that are eating their flowers. So they go on YouTube and they watch gardening shows, right? And they get educated in terms of, what do I do if I have snails? They read a blog that says you should definitely use pesticides. That stuff kills them. Somebody else will say use salt. Another person will say build a trap. And then you have an e-commerce store, and somebody comes in and they're buying, wood chips, because they want to build a trap for a snail. right? And you have no idea what they're doing. Your keyword research is irrelevant, right? But AI knows what they're doing because they went there, they didn't watch YouTube videos, right? This is the before and after. This is where your thinking has to change. Previously, e-commerce companies optimized for selling wood chips and for selling pesticides. AI, however, now is going to tell the customer that they want to consider pesticides if they don't care about the soil, but if they're eating from that, if they're planting tomatoes next to the snail pot, then probably you don't want to use pesticides. You want to use something else. I don't know, salt, whatever. I'm not a gardener. Um, and by the time they send the customer to you, all that conversation has happened in AI, not across 5 platforms as they used to be. They haven't asked their Facebook friends. That shows you how old I am. They haven't asked, Google. They haven't looked at YouTube videos. They've gone to AI. They've had 50 conversations about the snails, and ultimately they come to your website and they're looking for some sort of organic lemon, flavor scented spray, and you have no idea why, unless you've been, you understand your product and the product cycle of how customers research your product. In this case, in the AI world, what you want to be doing is, the paradigm is, you want to know that your customers are researching this stuff, and you want to be the source that told customers that that is the healthy choice for your garden. So then the AI quotes you and says, as per this article from this, e-commerce store, this is the right product to use for this use case, and there it is, go and buy it.
Thank you, Ari. Definitely makes sense. And now on another aspect, and a different topic. I mean, teams keep asking what sources matter in my category, but they often guess based on their SEO, let's say, instincts. And I want to ask you, what is your practical, let's say, framework for identifying and mapping the sources that matter? I don't know, it could be Wikipedia, Reddit, or any other, let's say, review sites or YouTube. And how, let's say, you can translate it into a model source, let's say, preferences, or something like the ways that your brand and company are perceived from these sources in LLMs.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely a lot of conversation about Reddit and optimization of sources in social platforms, etc. And I have my own opinions and assumptions, but I don't think anybody really knows exactly how Reddit is used. I think a lot of people are assuming or convinced that Reddit works, for instance, because it used to be cited a lot. But I think there's a difference between being cited in AI and the AI making using this content to ground the logic to answer your question, right? And these are not the same thing. Like, so ChatGPT might be crawling Reddit to find out what are the topics that people talk about around, you know, motorbikes. It doesn't mean though that it's deciding which motorbike to recommend to you based on what Reddit says, because they know it's social content and they know that people say whatever they want, and half of it is advertising, half of it is planted, you know. They're aware of those things. The people who work there are smart. So I think the old sort of be careful with what you're optimizing for, and don't spend a lot of time optimizing stuff that doesn't genuinely help your customers. Stand still in the AI world. My rule of thumb is, like, if I think Reddit is a great place to convince people that my product is great, I would still do it. I wouldn't do it only for AI though, because I don't believe that AI trusts the information on Reddit. And even when it cites it, I think it cites it without necessarily baking it into the logic of how it answers questions. I think it cites it as, hey, I've heard this thing here, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to recommend this product because of it. And so, yeah, so some of those sources I would treat with caution and not necessarily invest blindly without understanding the difference. I think in terms of live information and LinkedIn and all those other sources, if you're a SaaS company, I think AI at ChatGPT is not as fast as Google in consuming and showing this information. And so if you're optimizing for Gemini, which you should, then I think that's great. I think all the, if you're a SaaS company, definitely optimize your LinkedIn performance, definitely optimize, and care about your videos and your, all the index sources. If you're if you're a large scale e-commerce company, then you have different services to worry about, right? You should more worry about the large scale crawling of your own website rather than reviews, external, etc. Um, and so yeah, I think the sources are pretty similar to SEO, but they're more qualitative. And the last thing I'll say about this is that ChatGPT doesn't know, just like Google does, it doesn't know what you're buying yet. They're only starting to find out now, and as a result of that, they are worst at recommending products because they don't know what works. They don't know which websites are good or bad, and therefore they're giving you fewer recommendations from a smaller set of companies. Whereas Gemini is able to deduce from all the knowledge that Google has that a tiny little blog with 1,000 followers is actually genuinely from an expert, and you should trust it. And so for some answers like this, optimizing for Gemini really works, right? If you find expert influencers and see your content and your opinions, etc. Whereas in ChatGPT, you wouldn't know to trust that source.
That's a good insight. I didn't know about that. And to be honest, I want to highlight one thing that you mentioned, and this is to take things with a pinch of salt and with cautious regarding, I don't know, any experts or influencers posts or I don't know material that you're consuming, because most people out there, especially on LinkedIn, have their own agendas. So I mean, someone could say that Reddit is everything and that it can be cited across LLMs and that you can see results no matter what. But I mean, yeah, it has to do with your brand, it has to do with experimentation and know what you are doing. So yeah, we're still early about these things. Now, on another topic, I mean, RankBee is being used for content optimization and let's say updating uh, let's say users' existing content inventory. And I'm interested in hearing about how much does, let's say, refreshness matter in AI citations. In, in particularly, I don't know, in any specific category, or I
Yeah.
don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, no, this is a good one. I think there's a misconception out there that optimizing for AI is a 9-month game, right? That you have to wait for the next training model. So this is a good subject to talk about. So sometimes that's true, but what AI does, ChatGPT and Gemini, is they only answer questions entirely from their training data if they are highly certain that the answer they're giving you was correct 9 months ago and is still correct. That's the criteria they use. If they think it thinks that the data might be changing fast, or that they're even back then they weren't sure about it. So, for instance, if you're asking for where to invest my money, or what's the bank that has the highest interest rates, or what's the best car right now, or what headphones should I buy, AI understands that it doesn't know what headphones were launched in the past 9 months. It could be that there is a new AirPod model. It could be that there's a new Sony model, right? So it's not going to assume it knows everything. And that's true with a lot of consumer products, a lot of business financial products. It's not true for lawyers, right? It's not expecting that the legal scene will be revolutionized. So what you might find is that if you're optimizing for legal matters, most, let's say 95% of answers might be canned, right? You need to optimize for 9 months to find out. However, in SaaS, e-commerce, and politics, what we find is that the web searches happen more than 50% of the time, which means AI is looking for fresh information to answer a question. And my advice for anybody who is actively changing content and actively pursuing optimization in AI is you find out which of your pages influence which prompts, and you optimize first the ones that are used for live web searches. That sets the benchmark for, and these are changing your performance within days or weeks. You don't have to wait 9 months. It's actually faster than SEO. Like within a live query, there is a cache. So ChatGPT and Gemini do cache stuff. So it might take a week for the cache to be refreshed. But then at that point, your page is new. The answer is different. And if you've convinced AI that you're better now than you were a week ago, then the answer changes and your product's recommended. But you can't do that for every product because they're not using your content for everything. But now you've set the benchmark, you've seen that this thing works, so you can do it for all your pages, right? You can apply that optimization technique, whatever it was, your content optimization, your JavaScript optimization, whatever you're doing. Then you can apply it for all the other pages, and it will hit your whole, long tail, by the end of the next training model. But I would always pioneer my research around what's sensitive to web search.
Very detailed. Thank you, Aris. Now let's play a role play. Let's say, imagine that you
You
are.
didn't tell me about this.
Yeah. It's just a play. I mean, you may like it. From your metaphors and examples, I really like your answers. So imagine, let's say that you are, I don't know, a AEO, let's say, expert working at a not an enterprise, but let's say for a company making around, I don't know, from 10 million to 100. And you are part of the team that you have, let's say, to improve their AI visibility without, let's say, rebuilding the entire content and SEO game or I don't know what. What could be your, let's say, first 5 actions that you would take? You can also use RankBee if you like. I mean,
Yeah. The obviously first is always understanding. So I would look to understand what are the topics, build that map that says, here's how AI makes decisions around my product. Obviously, RankBee has a method for doing this. There might be other platforms that deal with topics, not just prompts. You just don't want to be focused on prompts. You want to be focused on the attribute view of your product and how AI analyzes it. Then you want to find your weaknesses and find out which of those weaknesses can be treated quickly versus slowly. So I'd split my campaigns to fast and slow campaigns, like we just talked about. What could be quickly influenced? And then, obviously, you have to do an audit. See, are you crawlable? Do you have structural JavaScript, etc. issues? And once you're in the green, which 9 out of 10 times you will be, then there are 2 fundamental ways of making progress. One is changing your content. The other one is publications writing about yourself. This is the thing about ChatGPT. It doesn't, it knows what other people write about, right? Whereas Gemini also knows who buys what because of Google. So, and then after you've got this, find a really good content optimization platform if you can, and test variations and figure out what works.
that sounds like a plan. Thank you. And now back to RankBee. To be honest, I'm interested in hearing what are, let's say, the next major capabilities or features that you believe the market will demand in the next couple of months. I don't know, any actions, integrations, or things that you are building at this point?
Yeah, we like specializing in verticals at the moment. I think part of what makes the attribute analysis harder and why most platforms don't do it is because if you have a travel company, your keyword space and the way customers look for your product is very different to e-commerce or politics or SaaS companies, and therefore it requires either a lot of manual work, right, or you have to stick to your SEO keywords, and that's what most teams tend to do. And I feel that's not effective because if you're not attacking the attributes and the logic, you're not improving the rankings as fast, right? And so Our innovation is very focused around making product changes that specifically make it easier for B2B SaaS companies to identify the weaknesses and strengths, because these companies rely a lot on content. Same for travel. How do you set up quickly a mass scale travel campaign where your content production and AI systems at mass scale know what the weaknesses are and produce content? So one of the biggest launches we have right now is we have optimized content via API. So if you're a travel company, if you're a sports company, you can hit an API and say, well, I've got these types of holidays, I've got these prices, I've got this targeted customers, I now need a winning content for this thing. And we provide through API this whole black box optimization where we can produce a piece of content that has been tested hundreds of times, convincing AI that to recommend your package and your destination, for instance, so you can convert. So we think that's the game for enterprises, is really switching to mass produce experiment based content.
Yeah, that would be really useful. It sounds like programmatic SEO in a way, but I mean mostly focused on the AI search and finding these misconceptions and all these things that can benefit brands. This is really interesting, especially for large websites with many, let's say, pieces in their content inventories. That's interesting. Now, regarding the space and the industry, we recently ran an AI search tracking tools, let's say, report. We found out that, I don't know if I missed any or many others comes up every day, but the number was something like 200. And we've seen some players trying, let's say, to monopolize the market with VC money and trying, let's say, to get a really good adoption at this point. But I don't know, I'm interested in hearing your thoughts. Do you think that there is still a big adapt opportunity regarding this category? What are your thoughts, basically? I know that you would be a bit biased, but I'm interested, let's say, on your perspectives regarding the industry and what do you see?
I am amazed by what an amazing job so many different companies have made in quickly amassing an advantage in this industry. I think if you were looking at this industry 2 years ago and you were having conversations with big SEO companies, they would be telling you, there's nothing there. And if there was something there, all the customers are going to come to us anyway, right? That was the de facto view of the industry before it began. When some of those, winning VC-backed players came out and started gobbling up massive amount of market segment from this, they were extremely smart. They had, innovative products. They thought about the space differently, and they took market share from players who have been doing this and have close customer relationships for 20 years or so. So I feel that type of disruption was not expected from the industry, and I think the winners have every right to brag and jump around. I think it was a surprise for a lot of the industry insiders, and I think the reason it's happening is because it's genuinely new. It is genuinely different to how SEO works, and it requires different thinking of how to execute, and it's sort of it gobbles up the SEO industry to some degree. Because at the end of the day, you're going to optimize your site using the same levers. You still have to create content. You still have to create, for most small sites, you have to care about your linking strategy and your PR strategy, etc. And what the shift now is, okay, we've done SEO, let's just do it through the AI lens. But that means if you're a content company, you can't sell content anymore unless you're an AI expert. So immediately you're taking business away from SEO businesses. And that's why a lot of traditional tech SEO companies are racing to get into the AI, because most customers have done SEO and they now want to do AI. The other thing, by the way, is that large-scale automated SEO never happened, right? Like we did it at Amazon, and We did it to some degree at Orbitz, and maybe there's 100 companies who actually did closed loop, large scale automated SEO, but the industry never did it, because by the time AI was out, companies cared about mass optimization for AI. So really the weird thing that happened, the distortion in the industry, was that AI came out, and instead of the most important thing about SEO becoming how to AI content for SEO, it became how to AI content for AI, and therefore SEO was leapfrogged. And whoever's thinking about mass scale automation is thinking AI first, and by the way, SEO. And that is why the industry, is different to what people predicted. I think that was the surprise that a lot of incumbents didn't see coming, and that's why it's important to focus on companies that understand AI first and large scale automation, and less about is it SEO, is it AI? Well, it doesn't matter. Do you have amazing content? Is it targeting the right prompts? Is it targeting the right audience? Is it targeting the right attributes? How do you create mass scale SEO campaigns is still the answer, but the target has changed to be more AI focused.
So are you still optimistic regarding AEO or SEO? I don't know, or both of them?
Yeah, I mean, you're still doing the same things, but you're using different targets. I think that's how I see the transition. Is like all the knowledge you have as SEO experts out there, everything you've learned about, automation, about analytics, everything you've learned about, getting mentioned, about getting your product, in publications, linked to, written about, how do you write about your product? All those things are great and valid. What's changed is you can't write content the same way anymore. It's not going to work. You have to use different, smarter targeting methods for enriching your content with the right information, and you have to use content and linking campaigns that convince AI, not cover keyword targets. And these are the biggest differences.
Thank you, Aris. And since it's almost time, let's wrap this up. The last question that I have for you, and this is also a CTA, where can the audience find more about you, RankBee, or get in touch?
Hop on RankBee.ai. We do a variety of things for customers. We do, consultations. We do large-scale enterprise API programs, and we also offer the toolkit for folks who are, smaller companies that want to use it themselves. Hop on RankBee.ai and get in touch, and we'll figure it out.
That's great. So thank you, everyone. I really appreciate to have you here, Aris. Great perspectives. It was a great talk, and see you all, and wish you all the best with RankBee and everything you are doing. Thank you.
Thanks, Zach. Pleasure.